Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have an awesome new review for you from a new brand called York Front Watch Company. Now they're basically a new enthusiast-founded micro brand that really focuses on combining that old world design basically with the robustness of a modern day timepiece. So as you can tell probably just by looking at this watch here, it's a pretty nice, versatile, everyday style watch. Now some key common characteristics and design language you're going to want to look for when you're shopping around for an everyday watch. You're going to of course want something that has that clean, classic aesthetic, and then of course being sensibly sized, which this watch definitely is. This is actually their first model. It's called the Burrard, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And essentially this is the one with the matte black dial, which is really nice. Now, this watch is basically just a Swiss-made, no-nonsense daily wear for really all occasions. So just designed with versatility definitely in mind. Now the retail price on this is actually under 600 bucks at $590 direct. Now some of you might be thinking that's a great deal, some of you might be thinking, wow, that's kind of expensive. But I think once you guys get a closer look at some of these details and the fit and finish, you're really going to understand why that price point is actually not only pretty good, but it's even kind of a deal when you actually kind of take into account some of the real nice detailed qualities about this particular timepiece. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look. All right. So although the specs did fly across the screen there in the beginning, just to go over everything pretty briefly, this has a 38 millimeter diameter with a 12 millimeter height and a 44 lug to lug. This is made out of all surgical grade 316L stainless steel. This has a sapphire double dome with a slight box AR. With a slight box crystal with inner AR coating. As you can see here, that profile is insanely nice with that sapphire there. Even at pretty harsh angles, because of the double dome, you're going to be able to maintain a very nice legibility here. So really quite legible, quite clear, and very, very handsome. Now, the crown, let's go ahead and get into the bezel, which is fixed there and highly polished, and then you actually have a nice sign screw down crown. This particular one is actually, of course, this is unavailable so far, so this is actually a prototype. And one thing about here is on the prototype, it actually has kind of a smaller crown. On the production model, it's going to have actually a 6 millimeter crown versus the 5 millimeter crown seen here. So the I think the dimensions and the proportions are going to be a bit better. Obviously it's going to be a little easier to grab, but I think it's going to look like it sticks out less because it's going to have just a little bit more girth, which I think will be a really nice upgrade. Now the movement inside, although you can't see it, but what you can see is this beautiful case back. Really well done. And the nice thing is it doesn't look like anybody else's case back. It's actually just a really nice execution of their information and their branding, and that really beautiful deep etch there that looks really nice even in highlight as well as in low light. You can really see the depth there, which is really great. So behind the case back, it's actually going to be an SW200 -1, and then this particular one is pretty standard because of course it is just a prototype, but the production models will actually have the phantom date position removed, so you won't have to worry about pulling it out any extra positions that aren't going to be useful to you because this is a no date dial. Now, to get a little bit more into the detail of this beautiful dial, it is of course matte black with that white outer minute track, which I think is a really nice contrast and really just gives the dial some really nice spacing. And I think it really uses kind of the dial face really well, and almost helps shrink the dial down just a little bit because of because of the way they're utilizing that outer space there, which is really nice, because it also does push those Roman numerals for the hours a little bit more inboard, which does help fill the dial, I think, a little bit nicer. Now, as far as the hands go, the hour and minute hands are actually very well done. As you can see here, they are brushed. Let me see if I can get the light to hit. You can see there that they catch the light in a much different way versus being very reflective. When you have that brushed finish, they're just gonna light up, as you can see. Really nice. And then for the seconds hand, you do have it painted white with that red tip there, which is very classic. As far as the loom goes, this particular one is using C1 on the prototype, but this will actually have BGW9 on the production model. The water resistance on here is 100 meters or 330 feet, which is great, especially with that screw down crown. So that's going to be an 100-meter water rating that you're actually going to trust, which is great. Now, the lugs are 20 millimeters, so this is just going to be an absolute strap monster. As you can see, the fact that it actually has lug holes, drilled lugs, is really great, and it's definitely going to help with strap exchanges. And then, of course, on this particular model, on the OEM leather, it's going to be even easier because you even have the toolless spring bars there to help you remove the strap whenever you're changing. Now, as far as kind of the dims on these straps, they're 20, and then they do taper down to an 18 millimeter taper, which is pretty nice. And really impressed with this hardware. Check that out. Really beautifully done. You're gonna have multiple finishes there. A little dusty. Let me give it a quick wipe for you guys. Fully milled, as you can see. Really beautifully done. Multiple finishes. Even have a really nice cut out here, so that when it actually is going to be worn, it's going to lay and kind of envelop that end of the buckle there. Is just going to lay that much nicer on that strap, which is really nice, and gives you really kind of a very finished and tucked away feel while it is on the wrist, which is really beautiful. Now, this will actually also come with a seatbelt Nato strap, so that's another plus as well. And then it'll also come with a leather watch roll, which I think is definitely very useful. Of course, again, this is just a prototype, so I can't show you all that, but just to give you a little bit of info on kind of what the finished product is going to be kind of packaged in as a whole. Now, with all that said, let's actually get this on the wrist. Okay, now as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this thing wears just beautifully. Although some 38 millimeters tend to wear really small, I think this one really wears beautifully. It doesn't, not to say it wears larger, but I just feel like the proportions with the way the dial is actually helps it wear just more balanced and feels a little bit right. Even when you're up close on it here on this wristy, you can tell that, of course, there's going to be some lens distortion that normally makes the watches look quite large the closer you hold them. But then once you actually get a little bit of idea of my arm and some better idea of scale and kind of the human form as a whole versus just a wrist shot, you can see that this actually wears really quite well, even on my kind of the larger side of medium wrist. Now, this thing just lays really nicely. Look at those chamfers, as you can see, just lighting up. Nicely done. Loving that profile there. Just really fantastically done, guys. On the wrist, there's really no complaints to be had. This thing wears like a dream, and the nice thing is it's obviously going to be quite a strap beast, so you're going to be able to put on your most comfortable straps on here if you don't like what comes out of the box. But I think out of the box, this thing is quite impressive. I mean, look at the finishing on that buckle there, the way the light plays off of it, the way the shadows kind of give you a nice idea of the uniformity that's on that brushing on that buckle. Fully milled, everything just, woo, Thing looks good, guys. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to some low light transition and loom shots. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. All right, actually, like I said, this isn't the production model, so let's go ahead and give it a mild charge there, just so you can get an idea of where the loom pips actually are. You can see they're very small and they just wrap all the way around that outer minute track. And you know, although they're less legible now, again, this isn't some deep diver, so it's definitely meant to be more of an everyday, if anything, more on the field watch side. So not going to be super bright, but you know what, it's not like you're going to be taking this thing very deep into the water or anything like that. Now what I like to do on my videos is actually do a low light transition, just so you can get an idea of the way the light actually plays on here. My hot studio lights do a great job of representing, you know, lighting situations that are a lot closer to, you know, full on sunlight, full broad daylight. But you know what, you're not always going to spend your time out in the middle of a field or a park. You're going to actually be coming in and out of buildings, going in and out of your vehicle and whatnot. Look at the way the light plays on those numerals, because they actually are finished with a nice kind of machined brush on there, which really catches the light and just plays with it. You can see they can kind of phase away, and it can look very flat and gray, and then boom, super high contrast as well once the light hits it. And then you can actually get a nice look at that finishing there, nice and uniform. Of course, this is going to have a couple nicks and whatnot from, you know, doing the rounds as a prototype loaner for review. But if you take a look at the brushing there on those lugs, look at the way the light just rides on there, shows a beautiful uniformity and finish. Very, very clean. Man, I'm loving how that transition there. It's just like, okay, hey, here's your watch face, boom. And they just light up, and it's just a nice little light show. And the cool thing is this actually does a lot of that when you're actually wearing it just out in daylight, because of the way that these catch the light. It's actually quite, you know, a handsome watch to look at. So for my closing thoughts, it definitely has that kind of those vintage inspired good looks with modern build quality, you know, and definitely a very nice kind of 38 millimeter diameter with a 20 millimeter lug with proportion, which I think is a very clean look. It has that really cool expansive dial. Like if you look at the actual size of the dial and the crystal, it's very much a wide open dial, but because of the way that they use the space, it doesn't feel overly sized. It actually helps, for me, it helps kind of reduce some of that visual weight, while adding it in other ways with kind of how bold the numerals are. I think it gives you a little bit, and it just somehow has this really cool balancing act that I think it's doing really, really well. And especially considering that this isn't just like a very traditional dial layout that's, you know, been done 100,000 times. They actually had to put some thought into how to make this work and be something really special and specific for this model. So I think they really did a great job from that standpoint. Now, as far as model variants go, there's also a white dial model, and then comparable models. Honestly, this thing is a little bit of Seiko Sarb meets Hamilton Khaki with maybe like a hint of Bremont Solo. I mean, this has got a lot of really cool, fun design features, and I think and little details that other brands have definitely done really well. But I think here, although it is a very, I guess, a very clean and almost sterile look to it, it still has a lot of personality, which I can definitely appreciate. For everything from the finishing on the case to the finishing on the dial, and kind of the choice of different textures and finishes and sheens and the way the light plays off of certain things, I think that's really, really awesome. So I mean, the bottom line, this is a very super impressive, pretty much, initial offering from a company that has really I guess you could call it almost Christopher Ward-like finishing. And that's definitely a compliment, because Christopher Ward has kind of been noted for stepping their game up kind of outside of the realm of your standard micro brand. Of course, not into the area where it's just going to be like high, hot horology, luxury, near luxury, but definitely on kind of that higher end, you know, watches that if this had, of course, if this was a Swatch brand watch, you know, it would definitely cost a lot more. I believe it would probably even cost more if it was even in the Hamilton khaki line, because the Hamilton khaki line just isn't this detailed, especially not in the cases. So with that said, if you guys like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.